New Year. Welcome back to Jections. We just enjoyed a small issue of me failing to hit the record button, so a great end to the year going on over here, much like Inter's 1-1 draw against Genoa. I'm your host, Andrew. I've got Irfan, Miko, and Jay with me. Irfan, good morning.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on, team? What's going on, all our ardent listeners? Looking forward to breaking down the last match. Disappointing result, but not feeling too bad about it, but looking forward to getting into it and talking in detail about our numerous failures of this year.
Miko, what do you got planned for tonight?
Yeah, looking forward for the New Year festivities. And what can I say? A bit disappointed draw, but all in all, looking pretty good. Everything's going according to the plan.
Jay, so happy you've chosen to spend the last 47 minutes of your 2023 with us.
Yeah, it's been a strange year for Inter, and there's no better way to ring in the new year than with a excellent new episode of the wildly popular Interjections podcast. So, looking forward to it.
Yeah, we are pretty big time now that we are officially installed on the Inter subreddits, if you check the side panel. So yeah, we're moving on up in the world. Let's dive into this draw against Genoa. Everyone on this podcast had identified this as potentially a trap game. If you looked at our previews in the last episode, I think Miko even successfully predicted a 1-1 draw. So we all knew this was going to be tough, but there's the difference between, we think this is going to be a tough game, and the reality of waking up and watching what it was a bit of a tough game, 1-1. We didn't create many chances. There's a 10-minute delay because of flares on the pitch. There's just never any rhythm in this match. And you get the first goal, you think you're going to be in front. You think you are in front, but you think you're going to be able to settle into this lead before halftime. And then you immediately concede a soft goal off a corner. So, Irfan, I want to start with you. Thoughts on the game and how much this result is going to matter in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, the match itself, I think, was extremely frustrating for any Inter fan. Probably it wasn't great. We never looked like we were in much of a rhythm. We didn't look like we imposed ourselves for any pockets of time. I mean, if anything, you can applaud us for kind of staying in the match and doing fairly well. But it never felt like we imposed ourselves or we played particularly well. We got into a rhythm, and I was thinking about this match right after, the result, and I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, maybe we were missing Lautaro, and there's a lot of small things he does that benefit the team in a lot of ways. But to me, this match wasn't about Lautaro being gone, which is, I think, what concerned me the most. It just didn't feel like our midfield did a great job of kind of imposing themselves and dictating the rhythm of the play. And then our defense, surprisingly, and not just on the goal, but throughout the match, I think, really looked kind of out of sorts. And so my kind of two most concerning takeaways from this is you're starting to see a couple of patterns now with Inzaghi that are starting to give me a little bit of concern. Again, I'm not taking anything away from how well he's done, how well the team's done, but there's a couple of bad habits that you start to see pretty consistently. And two things that pop into my mind. One is he's extremely late making substitutions. He doesn't react to the gameplay, with any urgency, to me, it seems. The only time he's very quick to pull the trigger is if anyone gets a yellow card. We joke about that. But he's not quick to pull the trigger if he's noticing that we're struggling to impose ourselves. Maybe he just has supreme confidence that we'll figure it out. But in this Genoa match, for example, I thought that we needed a substitute a lot earlier than he reacted. And Genoa even made substitutes before we did. So that's one thing I'm noticing with him. He's very late to react to substitutes. And maybe it's he doesn't trust the players, or maybe the players are injured. But I feel like that's been a constant throughout the year. And the other takeaway was that, again, I'm sorry, I like the player. I know he's very important to us. But Mkhitaryan cannot be playing 90 minutes every match even when he's clearly like struggling. Like he did not play well at all against Genoa, I thought. And I'm not scapegoating him because the rest of the team didn't play well either. But I think Inzaghi has this tendency to, what I say, Dzekofy players. Like he treats them like he did with Dzeko, which, great player, kind of legendary player, but also an older player. And then he just runs them into the ground because he trusts them. And I'm worried that he does that with Mkhitaryan, and I'm worried he's doing that with Acerbi as well. Acerbi had a bad game for the first time in a while. So it's just his tendency to kind of overuse older players, even when the performances aren't backing it up, is another cause of concern for me. Darmian, I think, so far has withstood that, but I'm worried about that too, given our situation. But luckily, our injuries are getting better. So those were my kind of two kind of concerns I had. But overall, with the result, it's like whatever. We're going to drop points. Juventus is going to drop points. Not too concerned about that. But it's these two bad habits that I'm seeing now that I don't like.
The Mkhitaryan performance was not good. I thought I don't know if I can say he looked tired. I don't know if he feels tired or not, but he was losing possession more than he typically does, and our midfield couldn't string a pass together. So I'm with you there. The substitution one, I'm a little torn on because while I was crying out in the 60th minute for us to make a change, if you start going through the options, the tools in the belt included putting on, like you could put on Sanchez for one of the strikers, which we all don't want to see. Both of the reserve wingbacks are injured. So then pretty much that leaves you with Frattesi in the midfield. So Miko, any thoughts on maybe the lack of substitutions? And I'd also love to hear your thoughts on the conceded goal, Miko, because I thought it was a soft goal to give up and Summer should have done better.
Yeah, I was about to comment also that about the substitutions or the lack of them early, is that indeed there are really no options. We saw how Sanchez performed after he came in, and he was like almost non-existent there. You couldn't see him. And then there's really no one else. You mentioned Frattesi, but he got like flu like day or 2 days before. So
I refuse to use Young Sar.
Yeah, of course. But I think Inzaghi kept the substitutions because he couldn't put Frattesi in earlier because he didn't trust that Frattesi can play like 30 minutes. I think that's the reason. Of course, there's Aslani, but I don't think we needed them or needed Aslani in this match too much. Çalhanoğlu wasn't too occupied. I don't know. Did he took Çalhanoğlu off at any point? I don't even remember what were the substitutions.
Çalhanoğlu played 90 minutes.
Yep. Yeah. But anyway, I think the kind of the issue with the subs was that there's no really good options. I wouldn't put Klaassen in any earlier than we saw. I don't trust him or Sensi for that matter. So yeah, I don't read that as a concern regarding this match. As for the goal, yeah, I think we struggled a lot with the set pieces, like throughout the match. But this one where Dragusin scored, it was a good header, but I think Sommer should have taken it. I think it was a bit weak goal to concede like that. It wasn't like was the Augusto marking Dragusin and he got like totally free header. It was a well taken, but it wasn't like directed to the corner or anything. I think Sommer was he wasn't like anticipating it correctly. I don't know. It was a bit weak goal to concede in my mind. And in general, and looking at the stats, I think we should have won the match. I don't know about you guys. I'm not like totally into these expected goals and other advanced stats, but they they show that Genoa had like 0.54 expected goals, and we had like 1.81. So there was some kind of a difference there. And total shots on target, they went to us, big chances also. So I think conceding that one goal, it didn't quite like represented how the match was going. But then again, that's the whole point of like being, for example, being good on set pieces by these so-called smaller teams. You can always pull a goal out of nowhere, and that's what happened in this match.
While the X goal from, like, we did have more like higher X. I'm gonna sound like an idiot here. We had like a higher expected goal total than Genoa for the match. Like, you can break it down by chance, and none of the chances we had generated particularly high expected goals, but we had enough like low percentage chances that like propelled us to having some expected goals.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Yeah.
Whereas Genoa had close to no expected goals. You don't want me to tell you what the expected goal was on the Dragusin header that Summer let in, because it is low. Statistically, should not have gone in. So
that's the case with those like set pieces and headers from set pieces, or set pieces in general, that they are like low chance, but once in a while you hit them.
Yeah, exactly. Jay, curious to hear your thoughts on the Summer goal conceded, and maybe just your thoughts on the attack, where Thuram had a bad game, possibly his worst game in our colors, and Arnautovic finally scored a goal, but it's not like he did anything to actually contribute to the goal.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Thuram was probably the worst player on the pitch, unfortunately. And as you said, arguably his first outright poor game for us. Like, it seemed like nothing he was doing was coming off. It was one of those games where everything was going against him, even those kind of like tussles on the sideline where, you know, he's going one-on-one with a defender and then he tries to cross it or whatever. And normally you can kind of, you know, you either try to beat your man and cross it in, or at worst you kind of buy a corner, you know, by just banging the ball off the guy's knee or something. But then the ball kept bouncing back, hitting him and then going out. So Genoa would get a goal kick. I think I saw that happen like 4 times in that game. And then there were a few times where he just completely miscued the ball. So yeah, I don't really know what went on with him. Obviously it's just one game, so hard to say that it's indicative of like a greater problem or any bigger issue. But yeah, goddamn, that was a really bad match from Thuram, and I don't know why Inzaghi took Arnautovic off when he was the better of the two marginally. Arnautovic was slightly more involved, and he did score that goal, which he somehow, you know, he made it look a lot harder than it should have been. Yeah, I was concerned that the biggest concern for me was just the overall mentality. The guys seemed like they were in holiday mode, and it kind of deluded me into thinking, it's the last match before the break, you know what I mean? But there is no break. We have a match in 6 days, you know what I mean? And then we have a match 1 week after that, and then a match 1 week after that, and then maybe a match midweek with the, I think the Super Cup or whatever it is. So there is no break. Why are these guys on vacation mode, other than it obviously being, you know, the Christmas and New Year's? But for them, it's business as usual, you know what I mean? But yeah, it is weird. I kind of like tricked myself into believing it was the last match before like you know, like the end of the season, or the last match before a mid-season break or something. And I was like, hang on, these guys are playing like 5 days from now. So a week from now. So there's no excuse to look this flat and for us to buy into this, last match, you know, before the break or whatever. So that was my biggest concern. The fact that the guys looked tired, the guys looked completely just mentally kind of tired as well. It seemed like we recently went through that gauntlet of going through a series of tough away games, Juventus, Atalanta, Napoli, Lazio, etc., and we did extremely well to come out of that period, not just unscathed, but quite victorious. We won away at Atalanta, away at Lazio, away at Napoli, and then held our own very strongly against Juventus, which is on paper the hardest game of the season. But then to kind of go and drop points in this fashion against Genoa by simply not showing up is pretty disappointing. It kind of cheapens, I'll say it slightly detracts from the achievements you've just worked hard for in previous matches, especially, at tough away grounds like I just mentioned, and people are saying like, oh, Marassi is a tough ground to travel to. Like, yeah, it kind of is, but sorry, our last 2 matches against Genoa have been draws, and those 2 matches have come in seasons where Genoa were relegated and have just been promoted. So on either side of them being in Serie B, it's not really, a great excuse to say, oh, it's a tough ground or whatever, because, again, this is a team that got relegated and a team that just got promoted. Going to Fiorentina, going to Juventus, going to Napoli, these are tough away grounds. The Marassi should not really be considered that, especially when we've had such a strong streak against Genoa in previous years. I just want to...
But it's a different Genoa now. Gilardino came to Genoa 1 year ago, so I wouldn't compare those teams to this current one.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess Gilardino has done a good job, all things considered. Just want to go back and speak about the defense very quickly. I was shocked, to be honest. That was one of the worst defensive performances I've seen in a long time. Starting from the back, Sommer was slow, and in my opinion, it feels a bit harsh, but I gotta say maybe 2/3 to even 3/4 culpable for the goal, despite the fact that Augusto and Acerbi did not exactly cover themselves in glory, trying to defend Dragostin on that header. That should have been saved by someone. He should have quite easily parried that out to the side. And I know that, again, football math does not work in this way, but when you see him make much, much harder saves with distinction, it's disappointing to see him fumble what is a much easier kind of practice save. And towards the end as well, there was another really, really weak header that came to him, and he still fumbled it. It was extremely weak, and he couldn't even take the ball in one kind of catch. He kind of dropped the ball at his feet and then fell up on the ball. And then the Genoa player, I think Dragostin, accidentally kind of made contact with Sommer's head. But yeah, I mean, starting from Sommer, the whole backline was just a mess. You can say maybe Bastoni or Damian rather. No, I'll say Bisek was probably the best of a bad bunch. Bisek kind of held his own, but Acerbi was, pretty dismal. Augusto, first game of his where we can say that he's been objectively really weak. And Damian was uncharacteristically poor as well. And this is now the second or third time I've said that about Damian, and incidentally, they've all come with him playing at right wing back. He's obviously deputized in that position quite well for us over the past 2 seasons, but it was kind of midway through last season, or maybe even earlier in last season, after Skriniar got injured and became persona non grata, that Darmian moved to right centre back full time, and that period was basically when he became a really reliable player in that position. And I don't think it's any coincidence that now that right centre back spot has kind of been reallocated to Bisek and Pavard, that Damian is struggling at right wing back. Maybe in that time he's kind of lost the legs for it a little bit, who knows, but maybe he's just a little bit rusty, and I'm looking too much into it. But yeah, the biggest disappointment for me was just the abysmal defending on set pieces. As one of you guys mentioned earlier, the game was extremely disjointed. There was that long delay for the smoke, for the flares early in the match, and then there was just constant fouling going on. Genoa doing a good job of just winning cheap fouls in and around our box. At the same time, we were doing a bad job of not letting them, or rather preventing them from getting these cheap set pieces. But nevertheless, it felt like they just won every header. They were just dominant in the air. Dragosin in particular, obviously, and then Vasquez when he came on. Both of them were just kind of easily winning all the aerial balls without much contest. And that was, what can I say? That was as shocking as it was surprising, coming from a team which is normally pretty good at keeping out aerial balls. Finally, there was one moment right towards the end of the game. I think it was in like the 93rd minute or something like that. Genoa had a long ball go forward, and they had one guy in our half, and the rest of them were in their half, and the ball kind of landed or bounced in the box, and someone was there to catch it, and then without anyone around him, Acerbi goes for this like jumping kind of overhead clearance instead of just reclaiming the ball and recycling possession, because obviously we were trying to very half-heartedly salvage or rather score. Sorry, I'll say we were very half-heartedly trying to attack in the final minutes of the game, right? But instead of doing that, Acerbi just cleared the ball without looking who was around him, without getting the shout from his keeper to leave the ball, and it was just the dumbest thing of the match, which was filled with plenty of other dumb things. So I felt that instance kind of just perfectly summarized that entire match for us. Disjointed defense, no communication, no motivation, which is a bit concerning, and just like an all-round bad day at the office. Oh, sorry, I'll end with one final comment, which was that Barella, right, was he was undoubtedly the best of the three midfielders. I started the game thinking to myself, Barella's having one of those games where he complains and throws his hands up and all that and whines at his teammates. But the more the game went on, the more I started to feel like, hey, he's pretty justified here, because his teammates are playing like shit. No one's doing anything. No one's moving. No one's making the right choices. No one's making the right passes. Everyone looks half asleep. And Barella's frustration was greatly justified, in my opinion. Unfortunately, he kind of let the frustration get the better of him when he started mouthing off at the ref, and just typical Inzaghi. The second Barella gets yellow carded, he took him off immediately after that. He took off his best midfielder, one of the 2 or 3 half-decent players in the entire 11, and he took him off instantly because he got a yellow card. And that was just a massive indictment on Inzaghi as well.
For your Darmian points, 2 years ago, in Inzaghi's first year, Darmian struggled with injuries a little bit, and I was actually advocating for us to not renew him, because I think a lot of the problems I saw then are rearing ahead now, in terms of just when he plays wingback, he doesn't offer anything in attack anymore. I don't know if he's lost a step from a speed standpoint, but he does not have any attacking prowess he can provide from the wingback position, and it kind of reminds me of D'Ambrosio, where you're not getting good crosses. He's not going to beat a man off the dribble for you. There's just nothing there other than safe passes laterally that you're going to really get. Maybe Darmian's a more gifted runner than D'Ambrosio at the late years, but his move to center back has kind of rejuvenated his career in my eyes, and I understand why he's playing wing back right now, considering we don't have any healthy ones on the roster, with Dumfries still recovering from injury, and I think he was only available to play 20 minutes last game. But I totally see your point there. I want to anyone feel free to jump in, but Sterling was making a point that Inzaghi didn't go for the kill in this match, and that because Juve drew this exact fixture, Inzaghi looked at it as like, okay, let's just get the point and get out of here. Does anyone agree with that assessment? I feel like it kind of jives with what Jay was just saying about taking off Barella and not imposing ourselves in the match.
Yeah, I'm always up for a good rip on the coach. So yes, I agree, and I criticize. I condemn him. I condemn that man for not going for the kill.
Well, why not just censure him to make it even worse?
I don't know. I wouldn't blame Inzaghi for this one. I mean, I feel like, I have my frustrations with him, but I'm not sure it was. I'm not sure the results of the match were dictated by what happened with Juventus. I think it was more what Jay mentioned. Like the players were just flat. Like, he can motivate them. He can set up the team and he can send them to go play. But they all just seemed like they were out to lunch. And I felt like the effort gear, other than Barella, for any of the players never really hit more than like 75%. And yeah, sure, ultimately that might be on Inzaghi, but I doubt he instructed them to go out there and be okay with the draw. I think it was more the players just lacking a little bit of that intensity and drive to really kind of force us forward. But one quick point again, I'll mention related to what I was saying earlier about like Mkhitaryan. If you have a player like Mkhitaryan who is clearly so important for Inzaghi, right? Like he's probably the first name on the team sheet every match because he never really rests him. And I understand why. Like he brings something very different to our midfield than Barella does, or Hakan does, or even Frattesi does. If he's that important, you need to have some kind of a contingency or some kind of a backup for when he's either injured or when he's not playing that well. And I don't know what that is for us, because the guy, when he's not effective, really makes our midfield lack, which really makes our attack lack. And so I don't think we have a backup for him. And for someone that old and that reliable, like it'd be nice to have a little bit of backup or breathing room on the bench. And I don't think we have that. And I know we have one of the best attacks statistically in the league still, like by far. But I still worry at times where, if we're in a draw or we're in a tight situation, we desperately need a goal. Other than Lautaro and Thuram, who are probably starters of that match, there's really nothing in the midfield, attack, or wing that we can bring in to kind of give us a spark off the bench that will give us a goal. Like, I just don't think we have that player that can kind of break down like a tired defense or can do much of anything late in the game in a match where we're really struggling. And that's another concern I have going into the season, where we're going to see teams, for example, like Atletico, who are really going to just grind the match to a halt. Like, there's really nothing we have on the bench that can come in and create some spark or create something out of nothing. Individual brilliance, some kind of creativity. Just don't see it. Maybe I'm being negative, but if you all see anything like that, let me know.
Yeah, I think you're on point with this one. That, for example, in this match, and well, in a lot of matches, almost every match, we play the same system, and we don't have this kind of already in Conte times we talked about the plan B, and we kind of don't have that. But I could guess that's partly because of their roster. Like, we don't have this spark from the bench, in a sense, that we change the way or change the way we play, and we just the idea is to just continue with the system, and the system will provide us the results. And well, it has provided us results pretty damn well, but in these specific situations when the system isn't working perfectly, or like it's not producing results, we couldn't create too many chances, in my opinion, and obviously we didn't get enough goals. So that's kind of the that's the outcome of the kind of the system isn't working at that moment. And then in these cases, Inzaghi doesn't have this kind of a second plan what to do then if the system isn't working in this particular match. And I wanna comment also that about this match that we need to remember that we had opponent on the pitch as well. Genoa, I think they played very well, and they kept it very tight in their end, and we just couldn't break it properly, like to how do I say it, produce enough threat to their box. We created some threat, but nothing like no clear chances, like clear-cut chances, which just was missed or anything. We couldn't like get in properly. The goalie was excellent. He came out of the goal all the time and got banged up there many times. So he sacrificed himself pretty well there. But I think that we should give some credit to Genoa as well. They probably see like this match, maybe Juve match as well. They are like the top matches for them. So I could see them giving a like extra punch for these matches in front of their fans.
Just so happened to be their 130th anniversary as well, so it was like a full party mood. And we just happened to be unlucky enough to play them on their club's anniversary.
Yeah, I think all this considered, I think it just wasn't enough to put the like normal performance by this team. And I think I agree with you guys that it wasn't like a totally normal, in a sense that it was a bit flat and like not too inspiring by our team as a whole.
For Irfan's point about a Mkhitaryan replacement, I think the plan was, and the player they identified was Samardzic, who has a lot of the same qualities of Mkhitaryan, particularly in attack. And when that fell through, we perhaps pivoted and decided to bring in Klaassen as a last-ditch replacement. Interesting news this morning is Samardzic. It looks like he's off to Napoli. Some reports that his dad will be flying into Naples to negotiate with De Laurentiis. I'm not kidding. In coming days. Maybe let's to put a bow on this Genoa game. I'm curious to see how things go next week against Verona, because there is a chance we're just overanalyzing this, and it's as simple as we're missing our best player, we're missing DeMarco, who's the best wingback in the league, insurmountable to go on the road and try and win without those two in the same match, where you're just lacking some oomph in attack. So maybe we're overanalyzing this and overreacting to it, but we'll see. Hopefully we get a bounce back next week, and this isn't the start of a larger problem when it comes to just not having enough options off the bench.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, if we don't beat Verona, it's full Crisi Inter, you know what I mean? Full classic, classic end of year, winter meltdown. One loss away from Retiro. That's how I like my Inter. So as far as I'm concerned, if we don't beat Verona, look, sack Inzaghi on the spot if we don't win at Verona.
All right, well, let's hold off on the juicy Verona takes for a few more minutes. I want to talk quickly about the Mercato. A few updates. So, one, we got a couple renewals in. DeMarco officially renewed. I believe Mkhitaryan officially renewed, with a couple more renewals to come, it sounds like.
Darmian too.
Did Darmian also renew? Perfect.
Yeah, and just on that, sorry to interrupt, but am I the only one a little bit concerned that Mkhitaryan renewed until 2026? He's got to...
So there's an option to void it after 1 year. Like, we can buy him out for a nominal fee after 2020.
Essentially, we can give him a golden handshake after a year, but he's gonna be 37 and a half or something. when that contract ends.
Hey, he's entering his Inzaghi prime.
I mean, this is
I like it.
this is insanity. This is insanity. I mean, yeah, Miko made a great point, which kind of echoes a sentiment that we've all shared throughout this entire season and even before, which is just how important Mkhitaryan is to this system. That he's the only midfielder who is geared to naturally kind of glide forward with the ball. He's smooth, he's classy, he's smart, and he's elegant in the way that he plays. Honestly, the closest like for like we have is fucking Sensi of all people. But as Miko said, the fact that we don't have that that replacement is an indictment, I think. I mean, the fact that what happened with Samardzic happened, and ultimately, although, as we discussed in previous episodes, it was not ever planned that we would end up with Pavard, we did end up with Pavard, so the Samardzic deal can kind of be forgiven. I don't want to start going through like old events, but let's say that we didn't end up with Pavard and we ended up with like Toloi instead, then it would be then I would be much less forgiving about the Samardzic kind of collapse. But in any instance, point is, we identified that we needed a backup for Mkhitaryan, went for Samardzic, didn't work. Got Klaassen in as like whatever, last minute, this is the closest we can get, just do it kind of thing. So we pulled the trigger, we got Klaassen. Not the end of the world, but a Mkhitaryan replacement should be pretty high in the agenda for next season. So I don't really understand why we've committed to a 2.5-year extension to a guy who's turning 35 in like 2 weeks and who's already starting to look a little bit, look in his age, shall we say? And shall I mention that it's...
No, we shouldn't say that.
4 million net as well. 4 million net. It's not a small amount of money. So I am...
Look,
it's not, but it's the... I think that I read that the tax break is still like enabled for this contract. So I think that's part of the reason we gave the second year or the option for the second year, just in case that he keeps on like rocking and going on. We can just keep him and we have him like on a relatively okay or decent cost in our squad, even as a bench player, because of the tax break. It's not that big of a hit.
There's no chance he's going to become a bench player.
Can we?
I know.
Can we absorb or can we carry that weight when Lautaro and Barella are both going to get renewals, which will probably push them into like the 8 million net kind of territory? Keeping in mind that they're already at 6. Çalhanoğlu was at 6.5, and he's got to get a renewal soon. So, like, where's aren't we on a kind of constant yearly cycle of trying to cut our wage bill by 15%? Like, what are we going to do? You know what I mean? Like,
well, they're not 37 getting pocketed by a 37-year-old Strootman earning an extension. So I guess Barella and Lautaro will have to wait. They're too young for these types of extensions.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, where's where are the cuts going to be made if Mkhitaryan is getting an extension and all these other guys are getting pay rises as well? Like, we have been better to...
Yeah, that's a...
I don't want to...
We saw Toronto.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
The sneaky big cost saving this summer is going to be Sensi finally rolling off the books. This guy costs us $12 million annually because of the amortization of his transfer fee and his salary. So that's going to be a big cost savings for us. But yeah, to your point, this team just keeps getting more expensive as we keep renewing our players.
It gets more expensive and it gets older as well, which is concerning.
Yeah.
And this is why we ended up selling Brozovic for a penance, because there's a wide variety of reasons we sold Brozovic for a penance. But part of it is because we had a player on high wages who we had signed previously because we waited too long to resign them. And as a result, we needed to get rid of this large salary.
But talking about these renewals and talking about our kind of Mercato, one of the things that Jay has mentioned before, and I think should be a priority, like even if you're not going to find a Mkhitaryan replacement, right? Even if you're not going to go out, because we are kind of overloaded with bodies in the midfield. Some of them are extremely useless, but at least they're there. So even if you're not going to look for like a like-for-like replacement for Mkhitaryan, it would be nice if they kind of realize that you do need some kind of a plan B, and you do have a completely utter useless, just worthless kind of player in his current state in Sanchez. So like, where's the rush to go find, some tricky winger or like some tricky forward who has some kind of pace or some kind of dribbling ability, some random no name, from France or, other places in Serie A, like, the kind of player that usually gives our defense fits, like is not even particularly good, but will still give our defense fits. Like someone like that would be a great signing, not so expensive either. But again, we're not even talking about that, right? It's not even.
Well, we are not Fiorentina, so we can't like sign some random fucks from Serie A.
We also don't have Fiorentina's budget, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what concerns me is that, look, they say that Conte is like the most of all the managers. He's the one that's the most like a puppet master who basically wants to control his players as if he was playing PlayStation. He wants to control their every move, and that's why his system's so rigid. That's why he practices 11 against 0, where the players just rehearse movements over and over and over again. Whereas the difference that all the players have attested to between Inzaghi and Conte is that Inzaghi gives the players a lot more freedom, especially in the final third. And so you'd think that we'd be buying players who can make use of that freedom in the final third and deliver a bit more, or can rely on some inherent flair and technicality and some kind of, just more creativity, just more attacking capabilities, right? And this Buchanan signing, I mean, we talked about it last week, that it's kind of similar to like the Gosens Perisic situation, where it's like a simultaneous backup and a replacement at the same time, or rather a simultaneous replacement and kind of just rotation option / backup. But it's not, look, I can't really complain about buying some young-ish, because he's 24, he's not like he's 21, 24-year-old guy from the Belgian league for 7-8 million is not the end of the world. I'm pretty happy with it, and I hear that is pretty fast, so that's a bonus, I guess. But I'm not, from what I've read and from what I've seen, he doesn't look like the most gifted player in terms of like skill or technicality either. He does seem like a kind of faster Dumfries in a way, maybe a little bit more maybe a tiny bit more adventurous with the ball. But if anything, Dumfries would have been a great Conte player, right? Just like an idiot who just runs into spaces as instructed. And to that extent, Buchanan might have been a good Conte player too. I mean, after all, let's not forget Conte made Victor Moses very serviceable. You guys forgot that guy played for us, right? But but
I try to forget.
He was fine for the 6 months he was here. That's the extent to which Conte's system brings out or can use players who are not otherwise that talented or good on the ball. So Buchanan, right? I just wonder. Sorry, I did get a little bit sidetracked, but I'm just a little bit worried that essentially we're just going to have the same problem with him as we do Dumfries, which is that, maybe when we can kind of play him into space and just have him pass or do like a kind of low cutback, which Dumfries is. That's Dumfries' specialty for Netherlands. They seem to make space. He's up front. They go the overlap, and then he pulls in like a nice low kind of cutback for like a Frankie de Jong or whoever or Depay to kind of get on the end to. Like, that's all well and good, but we've seen so many times how frustrating Dumfries can be when he's not played into that open space, when he's not given this large space to gallop into, you know. If anything, I hate to say it, but if anything, the kind of Quadrado mold is probably the better for this outfit when we lack that creativity in attack, you know. So I'm personally a little bit torn on the Buchanan signing. I welcome a rejuvenation, but I just feel like it's kind of more of the same, but younger and a little bit fresher. So, yeah.
He doesn't remind me of Dumfries too much. I view him more like a lesser version of Quadrado, honestly. Not trying to be too flattering to him as a player, but I think he's a pretty good dribbler. Like Dumfries, I'm not convinced Dumfries is fast. Dumfries like runs really hard and he has long strides. Yeah. But like he's not quick. Buchanan has a little bit of that Bellanova speed to him, and he's actually, I view him as a strong dribbler of the ball. Like he's someone, like remember late in the Juve game where we're just feeding the ball to Quadrado and he was taking on a man and beating him. Like I think Buchanan has a little bit of that to his game. What I'm worried about with Buchanan is when Serie defenses don't let him get around them, and he's forced to make a decision on the ball. Then what? Like he's not much of a crosser. I don't think he's known for his passing. His lateral move is, lateral passing. Is that where we're going to resort to, where he's just like getting the ball to Barella? So that's maybe what concerns me with the transfer. But like, if we're able to sit back and counter people, I think this is actually a decent shot in the dark here. I've seen this guy a decent amounts playing like CONCACAF games. I don't know. There might be something here, but I do worry that we're just signing Bellanova 2.0.
No bias whatsoever from the Canadian, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm ecstatic about this signing, but it's like, this isn't... Like, I'm not going to go full J and hate my country of origin and be like, no, we can't sign a Canadian. But I've seen this guy play probably more than most people, and like I think there's some technical ability here. Like he's going to offer something Dumfries doesn't.
Falcao law full effect.
Yeah.
I think that I gotta say I probably never seen him play. Maybe few national team games, I guess. So I really can't comment on his abilities too much, apart from what you guys say.
Yeah,
but
the only thing. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that one of the big reasons of this kind of signing is the cost.
Yeah,
I think the salary will be pretty low, and then the signing fee will be like 10 million, maybe a bit less even. So I think that budget or the lack of budget like restricts our ability to get proper players for us, at least like in these times. We need to get the guy now, so it's a bit of a there's not a lot of like selection of players that fits to our needs. So we need to filter or have like a broader filter what kind of players we accept.
You are 100% correct.
I think that's that's part of the reason why we end up with this guy. And it's gonna be interesting next summer if and when we get this guy now, and then if we end up selling Dumfries, because then this Buchanan is our is our only right wing back at that moment, and it's gonna be really interesting what you're gonna do with
we'll find
that
we'll find some
then.
Other 37-year-old serial backup to Buchanan.
I have
Florenzi.
Yeah, the good thing
I would
about
take
Buchanan,
Florenzi over Candreva.
Yeah, oh my gosh, Candreva.
Oh, Candreva. I forgot.
No, Buchanan, I mean, look, the cost of it and the overall kind of plan for him, if it follows through, is I think a good one, because it will allow us to sell Dumfries, which I think makes a lot of sense for us financially and just otherwise. The concern I have with Buchanan is that he can't replace Mkhitaryan and he can't replace Sanchez, and so that's my concern.
He might be able to replace Sanchez.
I was just gonna ask an open question, but mainly directed to Irfan, which was on a scale of 1 to 10. How concerned are you about the fact that the club seems incredibly headstrong, like proudly headstrong about refusing to sign a striker in January?
Yeah, 100. 1 to 10, I'm at 100. I think it's a massive mistake. I'm getting shades of the PTSD of us losing the Scudetto to Milan 2 years ago because we were in desperate need of forward help, and all that Suning was able to manage was to give us this joke of a Caicedo signing who played all of about 5 minutes and did nothing in those 5 minutes. And it's you could see it, right? It's
by the way,
desperately calling for it.
He played against Genoa.
Back
It
heel.
did nothing. Yeah. So there you go. Like, history is repeating itself. We have a team clipping at our heels, massively overperforming, even though we have a lead. And everyone can see that we desperately need forward help through injury and through just fatigue. And yet everyone is adamantly saying at the club that they're not going to get a forward, and they probably won't. There might be some panic, signing of like trying to get Di Natale out of retirement or something, or signing Caputo on a loan, and they're gonna, parade that player around as here's your forward guys, now shut the fuck up, and then ultimately we're not going to do anything with it, and Juventus is going to like clip us by like 1 point. Like, I'm getting shades of PTSD from 2 years ago, and I think it's all warranted because we need a forward.
Don't worry, Lautaro is gonna be back, and then the panic is cancelled. It's gonna be fine.
Just recall Correa from his loan, and we'll solve the striking situation.
Oh God!
All right. Well, let's move on to this New Year recap game I want to do because we're running too long, as we always do. So basically, the way this is going to work is I have 4 categories. I'll start with the easiest one to demonstrate. So the first category is going to be Player of the Year. So someone goes first and picks their Player of the Year, and then whoever goes second, you can't pick a player that was taken previously. So we're going to talk about 4 different things, essentially. So I've got 4 categories, so we'll start with Player of the Year. So I'm going to go first and take the easy one. Player of the Year for the club is obviously Lautaro. Can't say enough about this guy. Ever since he came back from the World Cup, he's been a man possessed, playing the best football of his life. He's always been streaky, so I was a little worried after his start to the calendar year in January. He came back motivated, fresh off a World Cup win. You figure, okay, when is this going to teeter out? But it really hasn't. He's just continued to perform for us, and easily the Player of the Year in Serie so far in this season. So he's my pick for Player of the Year. I'll go to Irfan next. Who's your Player of the Year that isn't Lautaro?
I'm going to go with Thuram, actually. I think Thuram does a lot of work that allows Lautaro to succeed and to be comfortable. And anytime you're pairing kind of your star player or your kind of most reliable scorer with somebody else, it can always be a bit of a gamble. And we heard a lot of the criticisms of Thuram coming into the season, a lot of concerns people had about his ability to play as an actual forward, not as a winger. And I think he's shown tremendous technical ability and speed, dribbling, trickiness, and then also some really good goal scoring and kind of center forward instincts. So props to him. I think he's done a great job, and I don't think Lautaro can do what Lautaro does without having Thuram there. So I'm going to go and nominate Thuram for that one.
Miko, who's your pick that isn't Lautaro or Thuram?
So is this like
2023 calendar year? So last season,
calendar year.
You could pick Lukaku if you wanted to, for instance.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Çalhanoğlu because he was great on the second part of last season, and also, well, not like super. He had some weak games this season, but overall he's been very like very, very good in my opinion. He's made us forget, at least me forget Brozovic completely. To me he's so important for this midfield to work that he's taking this spot for me.
Jay, who's your player of the year?
Skriniar. No, I'm kidding.
You have to play for us to qualify.
I'm sure he did play in some part in 2023. I can't remember. Just want to give a shout out to our fallen heroes: Skriniar, Gosens, Perisic, Brozovic. Gone but not forgotten. I thought Calhanoglu was a great pick by Miko, and obviously Thuram and Lautaro are good picks as well. You can kind of just choose from any of the. Actually, I'd say you have to pick between one of Darmian or Acerbi for the whole 2023 calendar year. Both these guys they joined the club as backups, kind of unfancied, cheap, on the older side, just rotation players, but for various reasons, such as De Vrij and Skriniar kind of both having their respective down turns in form throughout the last 18 months or so. Both Acerbi and Darmian kind of became elevated to starting players, and that Champions League run we went on has to be, I think, a pretty large factor in grading this category, because the level that they performed at just consistently in the Champions League was immense. And then Pavard hasn't played much this season, and when Darmian has played at right centre back, he continued his 2022-23 season level, I think. And Acerbi, although he got cooked by Xerxes the other week, he's just been himself, kind of ragged and kind of, he looks very unkept and ragged, but that kind of adds to his character because he plays with all the kind of smartness of a typical Italian veteran, you know what I mean? And I think those two deserve a lot of credit for how well they were able to hold it together. I always feel bad when I kind of advocate for ultimately replacing them, such as hopefully Pavard eventually replacing Darmian long term. But even though it's the logical thing to do, and I always say, look, these are backups just playing above their weight rather than high level players, and I still stand by that. But I don't want to. I feel like I absolutely must kind of acknowledge that the kind of heroism in being able to do that. Being a backup and then having that pressure of a starting spot placed upon you for a long period of time, and then meeting far exceeding those expectations is something extremely commendable. So I'm going to give it to a joint award between Acerbi and Darmian, and honourable mention to Skriniar.
All right, enough of this.
Great shout.
I hope you don't mean for Skriniar. Okay, Irfan, goal of the season. Start us off.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm going to be biased since I was in the building for that one, but I'm going to go with DeMarco's half-court shot.
I figured that one to go number one, so you got the easy pick. Miko, goal of the year.
Let me think. I think I'm gonna say that in the Supercoppa match against Milan, the Lautaro's goal, that was some great shot outside of his foot. I'm gonna go with that one.
Jay, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's tough. I can barely remember what I had for lunch, let alone any of the goals that were scored in the first part of the year.
Or you can tell me about Inter drawing Catania on a rainy night in 2009.
That's exactly right. We actually lost to Catania 3-1 in 2009, but with Montari getting, I think he got a yellow card as he ran on the. Montari got subbed on, and I think as he was running on the pitch, he fouled someone and got a yellow card. And then, if I'm not mistaken, he stuck his arm up in the free kick for that free kick that was given and got promptly sent off.
45 seconds.
I digress. I don't know. I think I really, really liked Thuram's goal in the derby. Just that cut in onto his right foot and just smash it into the top right corner. That two against Milan, obviously. I didn't think Thuram was kind of capable of scoring goals like that. And to be completely fair, he hasn't come even close to replicating it since, but it was an amazing goal nonetheless. I also really liked Çalhanoğlu's goal against Napoli. Other than that, struggling to really think of any...
Yeah, you got to pick one, man.
Sorry?
You got to pick one.
Yeah, I'll go for Thuram in the derby then.
All right. I'm going to go with... Do you remember the Gosens goal against Lazio where the man put his body on the line, scissor kicking home across, colliding with the keeper to put us up 2-1. I think he promptly missed like 2 weeks because of injury after he scored this goal. That's the kind of commitment I can get behind. So I think I'll go with that as my goal of the year season. And then maybe a consolation prize to Hakan's goal against Verona, which was very similar to his Napoli goal, which is like outrageously from outside the box. Okay, Miko, what was your transfer of the year?
Well, that's pretty easy. That's gonna be Thuram with his free transfer, or so-called free. Of course, we paid some signing fee and such, but anyway, great signing in front of Milan, according to the rumors. And he's been like, well, as explained, and we've already seen by everyone that he's been like almost immense and like totally. We are like, I don't know. It feels like we are so dependable on Thuram and Lautaro. They form like a great striker duo, and it feels like we are so much less of a threat without them two on the pitch. I heard that Thuram hasn't scored a goal without Lautaro on the pitch. It was an interesting but understandable, or like, of course it makes sense. But anyway, Thuram for me, easily.
Well, that makes sense, because when Lautaro and Thuram onto the pitch together, we're basically playing with 10 men. Jay, who's your transfer of the year?
I was actually looking through who we signed in January, because I guess if we're talking about the calendar year, then there'd be two transfer windows, January and obviously the start of this season. But I don't think we signed anyone in January. So that kind of narrows it down. I mean, who do we sign this year? Thuram and Sommer, I guess. It's a pretty narrow kind of field for this one. Not many candidates for the award. Let me just say, it's sure as hell not fucking Sanchez. You have to give it to either Thuram or, I mean, you can hardly give it to Pavard, seeing he hasn't played much. I guess the next logical choice is Sommer. Unfortunately, as much as I like both players, and I'm excited for both players to kind of finally settle in, you can't really say that Fratesi or Pavard have been successful yet. So, really, when you put it that way, it's only Thuram or Sommer. And I'll go Sommer.
Okay.
Or Augusto, I guess.
All right. I'll go Bisek at third. This might be an overreaction to the past couple of games, but we signed this dude for 7 or 6 million from the Danish league, and he looks like a player. He looks like someone we can invest in, and if we keep giving minutes to, he's going to grow. So considering the bang for the buck on this one, I'm going to go ahead and take Bisek.
Yeah, it's a long time since we had like a kind of sign some random from nowhere or at least that I'm really excited about. So yeah, Bisek. I agree completely with the assessment on Bisek.
Yeah, we always talk about like Milan and the Scudetto season was put together with a bunch of dudes no one has ever heard of before. Like they signed out of the French league for nothing. And this is the closest we've really come to taking a player who, unheralded, no one had seen him play before except our scouts. And he's coming in and producing. Irfan, who's your last pick in the best transfer of the year?
Not to get too lawyerly on you, but I can't help myself. Since you said transfer of the year, I'm assuming that means transfers out as well. So yes. I'm gonna go with the sale of Onana because that has proven to be a stroke of genius for the amount of money that we got for a cash-strapped, poor, bankrupt, just underdog club that we are. Selling Onana for what we sold him for, and the ensuing hilarity that has occurred with Manchester United. Even though I like Onana as a person, as a player, I liked his time with us, but I can't help but think that we totally fleeced Man U on that, and I'm okay with the amount of money we got in, given our state, so I'm going to go with that transfer. Even though, as you all know, I love Pavard, so if we had to talk about only transfers in, even though he's been injured, Pavard, I think, has been a great signing.
Transfers out are completely fair game, but I don't think anyone wants to talk about the Brozovic sale as a good transfer.
Nah. Or Skriniar, for example. Not really a transfer, I guess, but,
Does not re-signing Lukaku count as a transfer?
I think it should.
All right. Jay, what's your match of the season? This is our final category.
Obvious choice is the derby. Man, it's...
Which one? There were 5 of them.
The 5-1 derby is kind of the obvious choice. I also really like the I think it was the first leg of the Champions League semi-final where we won 2-0, and this was like technically the away fixture. I think we scored both goals in like the first 15 minutes or something. And then Çalhanoğlu hit the post from outside the box. I really like that game because it just felt, I don't know, we hit like a new level of dominance in that game, I felt. And I'm going to go for a controversial choice here. Or maybe it's not controversial, but I'm actually going to say the Champions League final. And for me, I'll try not to get too long-winded, but for me, 2023 for Inter was a year of reminders. That Champions League final was a reminder of kind of, we've been living under this nightmarish financial situation for what feels like forever, to the point where all Inter fans are now by default knowledgeable in accounting and finances as well, involuntarily receiving that kind of education. So to play in the Champions League final was a reminder of the club's prestige, the club's history, the club's size and kind of prominence, I guess. And to be honest, I don't actually know what non-Inter fans think of the club, especially outside of the immediate rivals being Juventus and Milan. Like, I don't know what Man United fans or like Chelsea fans or Real Madrid fans feel about Inter. I imagine in, the last 10 years since the treble, they probably didn't think of us at all because we were a complete non-factor in Europe. And if we ever did, come across them in like the group stage of the Champions League or in the Europa League or whatever, we kind of gave them that kind of fallen giant kind of vibe. You know what I mean? Like, you come across these teams that were like good at one point, but is currently in like a real down cycle. And getting to the Champions League final was a reminder of where the club has been, where the club should be. And, on the flip side, I feel a lot of urgency that this team needs to win the Scudetto. I feel like Inzaghi needs it for his own kind of like, I said it the other week, until he wins it, he's not proven, even though he's achieved so much. Like, he's got right up to the cusp of winning the Champions League. He got right up to the cusp of winning the Scudetto. But as admirable as that is, there is just a certain something else attained by crossing that line. You know what I mean? No matter how dirtily, no matter how unconvincingly, if you cross that line, that makes all the difference. And he's yet to cross it. And so I feel a lot of urgency for us to win the Scudetto this season. And there's this kind of like, who knows what's going to happen? Like we always say, how long can we keep kicking this can down the road with regards to our ownership situation, our debt, our financial situation? Obviously, I don't believe the club's going to get like liquidated or anything like that or go bankrupt, but who the hell knows, But at the same time, what's the other answer? Like, if not that, then, what's the answer? Just constant refinancing until like, 2057, 2099, 3001, you know what I mean? Like, when are we going to stop? When's that going to come to an end? When's that going to be finally resolved? So until we do resolve that, and we don't know when that will be resolved, we are constantly living under this horrendous sword of Damocles, right? Of Suning. And to that effect, I feel like 2023, as I said, was a year of reminders of our current situation, our past situation, and the Champions League final was like a good kind of mix of both. It was a kind of bittersweet way to wrap up last season, that we kind of obviously made it so far but didn't achieve it, and yet also as like a kind of simultaneous slap in the face of, it would have been great to win the Champions League because now we got to look forward to all this shit, which is the new, the ever worsening financial situation. So being a sadist, I guess, I'm a big fan of. I was a big fan of that slap in the face as well. So Champions League final.
I'm just laughing. You do enjoy some good self-inflicted pain, so I can see it. I'll take the 2-0 in the Champions League semifinal first leg. Just, I was not conscious enough in 2003 to be aware of like going into the Champions League semifinal against Milan, but it's one of those like watershed moments that like I've been hearing about my entire life from different Inter fans. Like, it's just one of those constant things on their mind. It's like, oh, we lost the Champions League semifinal to Milan. The whole flare on the pitch, the picture of Materazzi and the Milan keeper. So to kind of exercise those demons and beat them with 2 goals, and like I think you said, Jay, it was 2 goals in 15 minutes. I think it was Zeko off a sweet volley off a corner, and then Mkhitaryan breaking through the defense, I believe, and just slotting home a nice goal. That's my pick for game of the year, because just you knew we were going through after that first leg. As soon as we, took the 2-0 lead and finished the match, there was no doubt in my mind that we were going to knock Milan out of the Champions League. And I know that meant so much to so many people. Had to endure the pain in 2003. So, yeah, that's my pick. What about you, Irfan?
Man, that was going to be my pick. So instead, I'll go with the 5-1 Milan match that we had this season, mainly just because, as you all know, I hate them. And in general, also because that was just such a fulfilling performance. Just all things considered, outside of, advancing against them in the Champions League, which was, relief coupled with joy, destroying them 5-1 was just pure unadulterated joy.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older and cynical in my days, these days are rare where you just have this pure joy. And I just remember feeling that when we destroyed them 5-1. So I'm going to go with that one.
I don't know if you're older and therefore more cynical, or you've just been hanging out with us too much. One of the two. Miko, last pick here. What is your game of the year?
Yeah, that Champions League final was a good shout. I was sure I could get to pick that, but I'm gonna go with. I could go with some of those away games this season, like Napoli, but I'm gonna go with the 1-0 win of Napoli, like the first match of this year, because I remember it was quite a key match. Napoli was like top of the table. I think they were like 11 points in front of us. So it was like a really, really big match in a sense. And we won it 1-0 by the goal of none other than Edin Dzeko.
Now this pick makes sense.
but I think that the biggest thing was that we were reduced the cushion to 8 points. At that point, I remember I felt that okay, we are like back in the race already. But then it went like it went, and we couldn't do it at all. But at that point, it felt really good that okay, we are back on, and Napoli is like not unbeatable, and we can do it. So I'm gonna go with that
we
one.
thoroughly outplayed them that match. I remember we made just chance after chance, and it kind of came out of nowhere because obviously by that point we had lost like a million games, and as you said, Napoli were running away with the title. So for us to kind of like suddenly or momentarily kind of regain our senses and put in a truly excellent performance was just like a really welcome break from the mire that was last season. And this is obviously prior to us kind of going far in the Champions League, so we didn't even have anything at that point. That was probably the best part of the season.
Yeah, exactly. It was like we kind of
we're still alive.
Well,
we're still alive.
Yeah, not gonna say that we stamped our authority, but almost like that. That okay, we are still here. We are alive.
Exactly. We reminded everyone, look, we're going through some shit, but we're still here.
Yeah.
And Jecko scored.
That's my
so
pick.
Of course. I knew you weren't going to pick a match where Jecko didn't score. So.
Oh yeah, well, considering Asllani hasn't scored a goal, I was like, which game is Irfan going to pick?
I almost picked the one where he almost scored. So that tells you.
I was convinced you were going to choose the Frosinone match because you were actually there, but
I had already picked the Thuram goal. I mean the DeMarco goal because of that. So I was like, I'm just talking too much about myself at that point, you know. I'm not going to do that. And I knew you weren't there, Jay. So it didn't feel right.
Thanks for considering my feelings.
All right, let's talk about Verona quickly and wrap this up. So Miko was giving us some grief offline last week, saying we need to watch the teams that we're going to play, before we talk about them on the podcast. And I said, all right, let's do this. And then it turns out Verona, 17th place Verona, managed to lose to 20th place Salernitana without recording a shot on goal at home. So I decided that this will be a New Year's resolution. I'll start watching our opponents starting in the new year because I'm not watching this game. But let's talk about Verona. This is not a good team. This morning, break-in news, they have sold their starting center back. Hien, where is he going? Let me just try to remember here. He's going to Atalanta. He's some Swedish center back. So they're down a starter. They're just fresh off losing to Salernitana, which is almost an impossible feat. Lautaro should be back. DeMarco should be back. Dumfries, maybe he's ready to start now that he got some minutes in. Pavard might be ready to start. There's words that Buchanan might be available off the bench. Like this should be a full-strength Inter team. We're at home. It'll be 6:30 in the morning for us, Irfan. Maybe Summer will be wearing a baseball cap, although I doubt it because of his impeccable hairline. I don't know. I feel like this is as straightforward as a game as we can have, but maybe to Jay's earlier points, if we drop points here, we're basically teetering on the brink of crises. Inter. So, if any of you have any thoughts, happy to hear them.
Verona wins 2-0.
No,
But by the way, I didn't watch this match either. so my grief goes to myself as well.
Is Lautaro back?
I think he might be back, but I think in this case, I don't think it matters too much. I think we're gonna win them by several goals, no matter what. It's the home game, so there's no chance for Verona. I'm sorry for them.
Yeah, I just can't fathom a way we lose this game to such a poor team. Like you can't seriously give me a footballing reason why we lose this game, especially if Lautaro's back.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna lose. I think it'll be a comprehensive, straightforward 2-0 win for Inter. I'm gonna go with, you know what? I'm gonna go with Thuram, and I'm gonna go with Asllani.
Asllani to start the year off right. Let's go. All right, Jay, what's your prediction?
0-0.
Get the fuck out.
This is just Jay wishing instead of predicting now.
I don't know. It's on it. Like, look, all joking aside, I think it's hard to call. You said it, Andrew, very accurately. Are we overreacting about the Genoa draw, or is there something deeper there? And it's really, in my mind, a flip of the coin. So, we'll see which ends up being right. If we're overreacting, then yeah, 2-0. I mean, I kind of prefer if we smash these relegation teams. Like, I don't think we were all that convincing against. I don't know. There's been a spate of relegation teams we've played this season. I don't think we've been like that great against that many of them. I think like the scorelines have been kind of deceiving, to be honest, at times. But anyway, so I'll go like a kind of fairly convincing 2-0 win if we are indeed just seeing a slight blip against Genoa. If it is an indication of like tiredness or some kind of like tactical, I don't know, just like, so something fresh or needing something fresh in the team, and the team kind of gone a bit stale, then we could be in for a long night. But I'll be optimistic and I'll say that we win this game 2-0 with goals from Sanchez. Both goals from Sanchez.
I can't take it seriously. Miko, the prediction.
The redemption.
Exactly.
I'm going to go with this easy one. It's going to be 3-0 and Arnautovic keeps scoring. Also, Dumfries is back. Also, he's going to score.
Well, why not just say and Buchanan hat-trick?
Buchanan is debut.
Yeah, hopefully. And then Barella will get one. He scored few now. So he's going to continue.
I can't believe that when Jay wanted to pick a DM to score instead of Asllani, he picked Sanchez. Come on.
At least pick Sensi. All right. I'm going to predict a comprehensive win here. We smashed Verona last year, right? Wasn't it like 6-1 in the away fixture? So
the home one was only 1-0.
Yeah, I'll pick another smashing of Verona. I can't get over this most recent result. So give me 4-0 with goals from. Let me rattle off a list here. We're gonna go Dumfries, Thuram, Buchanan in his debut, and Acerbi off a corner.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. After that Genoa match, I'm going to change my prediction. 3-0 Inter, Sanchez all 3 goals, and The reason I've done that is because I've adjusted my expectations based on Genoa match. That match pissed me off. I demand a reaction. I demand the team to show me that they're not, tired or something. Show me that. Prove to me that the Genoa match was just, an off day, just a bad day at the office, and that we're not, rapidly spiraling into fourth place. So let's go 3-0 big win.
Well, I'm glad we could end the year just on brand with this podcast. So thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you all have a great, happy new year. We'll be back in the new year with hopefully some more quality content and 3 points against Verona.
Happy New Year.
Yep. Happy New Year.
Yeah. Goodbye.